to most folks, it's just not a very common thing for them to meet individuals who have, you could argue, control or who govern more than, say, 100 people very often in their lives. Maybe once or twice, 3 times, 4 times. If they're lucky, they'll meet somebody who has influence over more than 100 people a time or two in their lives. Sometimes they may even be lucky enough to meet somebody who has been seen or known by a bunch of people. I can think of one instance in my life where I know of a person who probably had influence over hundreds of thousands of people. There may have been others, but probably not at the time that I knew them or met with them. I've known some others who again had control, if you will, who governed over 100 or more people, but not very darn many and not for very long. I didn't have very strong relationships with most of them. Now, you may be asking yourself at about this point what this has to do with my subject for today, which is kings and queens. That's what we're going to talk about on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the 2nd of May of 2021. Welcome to everybody who's here on Rumble and the podcast on YouTube, wherever you happen to be here from. Thank you for coming along. Again, today's subject we're going to talk about is kings or queens. And again, you might ask yourself what my initial little sort of monologue has to do with that. You have to ask yourself a question, in my opinion. And that question is, what does it mean to be a king or a queen? Okay. I'm going to read my notes real quick, and then we're going to talk about that idea. I periodically see folks wearing t-shirts implying the bearer is a king or queen. I can make a claim, dubious but still probable, to royal lineage. It's literally true that in my family are supposedly kings and queens. Kings, queens, princes, etc. What does that mean for me today? Frankly, not a whole lot. Is it really a bowl of cherries being such in any case? Not so much. Look, when you talk to somebody who's the manager over a section in some company or a CEO or CIO of some company, that person has responsibility over a bunch of people, and it's a hard thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's, horribly difficult all the time, but it's not easy to know that there are people who work for you who maybe end up in the hospital at some point along the way in their lives, for example. And that person doesn't even have the responsibility that the individual's family might have for them if they end up in the hospital or whatever, particularly if they're incapacitated in whatever form. But the point is, when you start talking about kings and queens, and even when you start talking about presidents or Congress people or whatever, it's less true for presidents and Congress people. Look, kings and queens are rulers. They are people who say grace over, who deal with, who work with a lot of people that maybe aren't constantly needy, but who they have to deal with the results of their actions towards various things that they do, considering constantly those individuals for whom they are acting as leaders. Good kings and queens are rarer than those who do the job at all, right? There have been people who were in the position of that sort of leadership. I cite people like, I think it was Tsar Nicholas II, right, of Russia, who were just not particularly good at what they did. There are other people who have complained that the level of requirement of them being in offices that weren't even that of king or queen have been too onerous, and that they didn't feel they could spend the rest of their lives doing that. Now, some of them did it anyway, right? But others literally walked away from that familial requirement, if you will, that duty. They walked away from it because it was just too much to bear. You think you're a king or a queen. Well, I can make some claim to that, but the truth is, as I say, it doesn't really mean a lot to me these days. But even if it did, The fact is, what it means to those who do that job more often than not is work, difficulty, hardship. Oh, they live in that nice palace over there. Oh, they eat good food. But they also spend their time working for and worrying about a bunch of people. And if they don't, the people for or over whom they are supposedly leaders rebel, remove them, kill them potentially. That's what happened to Nicholas, right? His family was rebelled against, and in a particularly brutal way, as far as I understand it, by the way, for those of you that are interested. Many times a person in the position of king or queen has failed at his or her duties sufficiently to make it so that people did something like cut their head off. You think you're a king or a queen. You think that that's what you even want to be. And I ask you why. Why would you even want to be that thing? You wear the shirt around that says you're a king or a queen. Look, I get it. What we're talking about here is we're talking about your worth as a human being. And I get that you want to say, I have worth as a human being. But the idea of equating yourself to a king or a queen in order to have that worth, in order to gain that value, that's not a reasonable thing. You may think it is, but it's not. If you think being a king or a queen is something where people wait on you hand and foot and you never have to do anything meaningful or difficult in your life, you are mistaken. I challenge anybody who could do it to go and ask Queen Elizabeth II of England whether or not her life is some simple, meaningless trope through the garden every day. She has I would imagine every single day of her life, or almost everyone, she has duties that make it so that she ends up doing things that most people would not ever imagine themselves doing. Imagine talking to foreign dignitaries. Imagine making sure that the government in your country was running properly. Imagine being the person who didn't per se preside, but was the sort of master of one house of the government of your country, and that she is the leader of the leadership, the royals, and the House of Lords is composed and comprised of royals. Imagine being a person who was responsible to this level and to this degree. On the one hand, she gets a lot of stuff. It's fair. She gets treated well. She gets to ride around in carriages and nice vehicles, I'm sure. But at the same time, she has to get up, get herself out of bed, dress herself every day, make sure that she's doing all the things that she needs to do. And many people wouldn't manage even the least of the things that are required in her little world. And this is true for most royalty in most places, most kings and most queens. I get that you want to consider yourself valuable. I get that you want others to consider you valuable. I get that you want to consider your children valuable. Please, for the love of all that is good, stop telling your children they are kings and queens. They don't know what that means. You probably don't know what that means. And I'm here to tell you, it's time for people to stop assuming that that's a reasonable thing to do. When I see a kid with a king or queen shirt on, it's usually queen because it's usually young ladies, right? When I see a kid with that shirt on, I think to myself, you have no idea what it means to be what is on your shirt. Your parents had no idea when they bought you that shirt or allowed you to get that shirt what it meant to be that thing. This is my answer to what kings and queens look like. And it's nothing like what most people think that it does. Okay, yes, in some ways it is, but not in many. The sheer duty that is required of a good king or queen is beyond most people's reckoning or understanding. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I think you probably get what I'm saying. I hope you do. I hope you understand that people are thinking things that aren't really true where that's concerned. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the 2nd of May of 2021. Tomorrow then will be Monday, the 3rd of May of 2021. Thank you for everybody who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Today's subject has been kings and queens. Tomorrow we're going to talk about a very important thing, that is due process. It is Sunday. I hope you're having a good day today. I hope things are going well for you. And hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Sunday, the 2nd of May of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.